Excellent. I want recording in progress. That's great because I want to talk about and show everybody something kind of exciting. So, as you guys know, I've had plenty of my own body issues, and I'm always curious with mine and other people's, how can we figure it out, right? How can we create evolution? And I'm frequently heard saying, look, just because you've had a thing for 5 years, 10 years does not mean that that's a permanent state of affairs and you can't change things. Um, and I've had that experience many, many times in my own body. So it's one of the ways that I remain so passionate and I hold so much faith about it. But it's very, very fun too in my yoga community and my massage clientele that I get that affirmed over and over again. And had a great experience yesterday with a body worker actually working on someone in my family and then offering a stretch for them that when I tried it, I went, oh, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, because it's really great for opening up that front body. How many of us are tight in the front body? Right, from sitting and even standing out of neutral. And if we're overly tight in that front body, it'll bring us out of neutral, right? And so then we become this permanent, a little hour forward of that 180. But it can be so challenging to figure out how to stretch those things, whatever it might be, hip flexors, psoas, quad, and really often it becomes the whole line, but there might be one little thing catching. And a good stretch will often reveal that. Like, is it just the whole global line? Is there a place that kind of, maybe it's scar tissue, it needs to be dug into, who knows? A good stretch will often reveal that. But how do you get the good stretch that doesn't hurt your knees or, if it's a shoulder thing? So this to me is an exciting stretch because it helps replace bow pose, which is a wonderful opener for the front body, especially once one activates like so. The problem is for a lot of people, even getting a hold of the ankles can hurt their knees. They may end up with their knees out because they can't get them in. Now you've got low back pressure. And then on top of it, if I add the engagement, a lot of times that will bother people's knees. But a lot of people can't even get into that shape. So then, you're getting into standing stretches, and we've done some of that, like just even going into our train tracks and reaching and breathing and feeling that stretch into psoas, hip flexor, quad, and knee connections. So I'm really excited about this, and I want to see, I think this will work. Just move this a little bit. So there's two distinct things, and one is, and so you guys are going to do this, but I'm just going to watch for now. One is that you lay down on the floor with your knees up against the wall and your feet up the wall, okay? And essentially, just like we do in Cobra or any of those, I definitely want you to engage pelvic triangle down. So I'm engaging my glutes such that my pubic bone and my hip bones kind of anchor towards the floor in that triangle. And then I'm going to, without, of course, straining neck or shoulders, I'm just going to inhale and extend. And then I'm going to bring my arms into whatever feels like the right height. Because again, if I go too high, now I'm crunching my back. And I'm just going to hold here and breathe about 5-6 seconds. And you can see I'm kind of fluctuating, right? I'm kind of inhaling and extending, igniting that stretch a little more deeply, and then softening. And you'll know when it feels like the right time, and you might just then settle. And you could even do a little butt wiggle or whatever feels good afterwards. The second piece is that you then bring your leg out to frog. And I was, they were watching my alignment and I was counseled, oh, hey, I have my heel too close in towards the center line and I want my heel straight back from the knee. I think you can see that. Yeah. Okay. And I'm essentially going to do the same thing. And boy, howdy. So that stretch is going right to here, that psoas. And my right psoas is much tighter than my left. And as I tell people, that can often wreak havoc on your low back, either having them both tight or just one. So again, you might hang out there for 3, 4, 5 breaths. You should not feel back pain. And then slowly release. And you might do it again on that side. You might just, switch back and forth, which to me seems a little more functional to kind of talk to them right, left. Very fascinating to notice the differences. But again, I'm pushing the breath down into my low belly. So it's the equivalent. And again, you would lay down, rest, and then maybe go to child's pose. But it's the equivalent of essentially this. I'm pressing the breath down to fill down all the way towards that pubic bone. That's part of what creates the stretch.
Are you pressing with your foot onto the wall?
No.
That's so you just get in position and relax.
Good question. Yeah, I'm not pushing or pressing with my foot or my knee in that frog position. You're just in it. And that helps bring the stretch right into that psoas. And so in this case, I feel it really deeply on the right, nice stretch on the left, no bigs. But to give you an example of how profound that psoas is and being able to release it when it's problematic is amazing. The other morning, my low back was just really bugging me. I'd done a bunch of body work and lifting and what have you, and it had just tightened up. At least I suspected. And I put the roller, I have a really squishy roller, so it's actually kind of like this. And I put it under my butt because that brings this position closer to my hands and it's in a softened position, right? Versus being elongated, so it's relaxed. And I started working in here and I would get to a certain point and it would almost feel like a gas bubble, like that sharp and that kind of nervy. And I just worked that part of my psoas. And I got off the block and a couple cool things. One, I went like this and I lowered and there was a clunk right here, which by the way, is where psoas attaches, right at the back of the rib cage, right around the diaphragm. So this tension line on my right hip was, or my right psoas, was also creating a little bit of torque and pull here, such that when I released it, my spine was able to adjust. And then I got up and I had zero back tension. That's literally all I did was get in there and massage that space. So that is another thing you can do to kind of investigate or to provide direct massage. The stretch that you're going to be doing on the wall, I think is very useful. But as I have learned as a body worker, sometimes when things are tight, the best way to release them is to go into them in their soft position, right? So I've had body workers work on me and they'll go like this with my head and then rub these tissues. And I'm like, A, that's not doing anything. And B, I think it's actually making it worse. And so we often want to go towards go that direction such that things soften and then manipulate and experiment into those tissues, right?
I have 2 questions.
Please, 2 questions.
One is, if, let's say your right side is tighter, do you spend more time than on that side and that
That's
side?
a great question. Do you spend more time on the side that, I would say, yeah, and I've always felt that way, whether it's with pigeon or what have you, when you're getting into a side of the body, whether it's your hip, your chest, I have that left side of my chest that's definitely tighter. I'll definitely spend more time doing that kind of tractioning thing that I've shown you guys and working through and trying to find where are those sticky, maybe scar tissue adhesion spots. So yeah, absolutely. The main thing I would say about this stretch, and again, we'll go right into it shortly, is just that you don't want to stay in extension long enough that you feel low back pressure really. And that may be a combination of also just not going too high. You want to go high enough that you can feel that stretch when you breathe and stay long enough that it feels useful. Again, this massage therapist who kind of has a PT perspective that gave us this stretch really said, you might hold for 10 seconds, I think was his parameter. But I would say, listen to your body and let's see. Yeah. Thank you so much. Those are really great questions.
Yeah, when you say hold it 10 seconds, you mean like when
in extension.
Okay, so you're breathing in and out in that 10 seconds.
Yep, breathing in and out for 10 seconds. But that was his parameter. And I would say though, let's see what you think. This is the first time you guys are doing it. I definitely don't want you to overdo. I want it to be useful. So let's all, if you would, you can leave your mats and stuff. Just go find a piece of wall. You've seen, you don't need a lot of space. We've got plenty of room for everybody. You just need to not be where there's, you know, a bench or something, so that you can put your lower leg up against the wall. Perfect. And the only other thing I will say is that my inner knee, when I have my knee out in frog, I'm very sensitive to this, and we do have really sensitive attachment points here. So if you get there and you're like, hey, this is just bugging me, I can bring you like part of a folded up blanket to tuck in. So, but first, you're all doing it beautifully. You've got your knees straight back from your hips, feet straight up the wall. And I'm just gonna give my little people here on camera kind of a view, if you guys don't mind. You can't really see who you are, but it gives them a sense of what we're doing. So as you're ready, first act is to anchor the hip bones and pubic bone, right? That helps stabilize that low back. And as you're ready, with your hands and arms, however you want, you'll find what feels appropriate for your shoulders. Inhale and begin to extend and draw that chest forward and up. Good. And please find a way to be relaxed inside of it. Relaxed mouth, tongue, neck, right? And you're not trying to look forward. The head is just kind of coming along with the spine. So questions, noticing so far? Yeah, and some people are finding actually what to me looks like a really peaceful arm position too, which is kind of a, yeah, almost like a triangle with the fingers in and the elbows kind of out. So if having your hands in more of a cobra, like you have there, Julie, if that bothers shoulders at all, you might try like this and see if it gets you enough height, which I think that it could and should. But play, again, this is just, there's no exact prescription. And so if you can, come into extension and hold and send breath down into that belly. So again, you might be holding an extension for as long as 10 seconds, then coming back out. And then if you feel ready, again, as you release your chest to the floor, you might give yourself like a little hip wiggle or something. If you need to give yourself a total break, do. Otherwise, you're going to take one knee out into that frog. So the knee is coming straight out from the hip and the sole of the foot is against the wall, kind of straight from the knee to the wall. You guys look great. And then as you're ready, you're essentially performing the same thing, that anchor through pelvis, extension through spine that brings chest away from the floor, holding, breathing, noticing, and of course adjusting. So just see, you can, if you bring your arms, get more like what she's got. I found it was less stress on my forearms, and actually I like doing it like this. I mean, on my shoulder platforms, yeah. See what you think, because it makes it easier for me to keep the shoulders down versus hiking. Okay. See what you think there. Questions, noticing. Are you guys finding a stretch? Oh yeah. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. No? Not terribly surprised. Difficult to do this for me, it's very, very difficult. Yes. Some people know, but I would expect that, for example, Barb is got a lot of flexibility and always has. And so she's not feeling it terribly much.
I feel it in my quad.
More showing up in your thigh than in the
psoas. I can't get the psoas at all.
Anybody else find this difficult or intense?
I find it intense here.
You're feeling kind of almost at the top of the hip bone, which also is psoas, by the way. So it attaches around in here, and you've got your lats running down in there too. Let's switch. Slowly, always come out of a stretch like that. Yeah, and windshield wiper both legs a little side to side to give a little kind of relief here. And let's see if this side is as difficult or as easeful, or if the stretch goes to the same place. So, you know, does Barb still get it in the quad? Does Alona still find it with the same level of difficulty on that side? Let's see. Colette, I'll be curious if it shows up in that same kind of above the hip bone waistline. No, different, down further into the hip. Cool. So isn't this cool? It's giving us such direct feedback about side to side differences, right? I've talked on and off over the years about how critical shoulder girdle and hip girdle are to our spinal health, our comfort, our functionality. And so here we get a chance to discover any imbalances really in the hip girdle and on down and up. Yeah,
I feel like right in here.
sure. Yeah, so that, again, that psoas into hip flexors, that whole line and inner thigh. Super cool. Is it?
Getting numbs to my elbows, everything. I can't even think anymore because this pain is strong.
It's coming up in your arms.
Something
I
happened.
can feel it in my arms.
Okay.
Just-
So some people are saying they're feeling some intensity in their arms, and that's understandable. What I'm thinking is, so go ahead and relax out, unless you don't have to. If you're like, no, I found the perfect thing. But what I was kind of thinking about when I was watching you guys and maybe suggesting some amendments is that I think trying to do this with like a cobra hand and arm is going to be difficult, and it's going to make you likely to hike shoulders and do no wings, no shrugs is really what I want. And so I find, in a sense, this is Sphinx pose, either hands forward of elbows or in a little bit if that's more comfortable. And what I like about that is it's very stable, and I'm able to anchor my shoulder heads down. And I maybe should have dictated this, if you will. But I never know my body, I just know what my body likes, so I'm never 100% sure is this a global thing. But what I like is that I can then also fairly easily walk it back just a little bit to provide that extra layer of intensity if I want to. So I just can walk back by like ½ inch and then draw the shoulders down and chest forward. And then press breath down in.
I get an interesting stretch if I put my toes down.
Oh, yeah, curling your
That's
toes under
something.
against the wall. Yeah, where do you feel that?
The arch of my foot, back of
So
my
yeah, good
ankle.
foot stretch. I'm not feeling it, but I work on foot flexibility a lot. Oh my God, we found a place where I'm actually more flexible than some other people. It's amazing. That never happens. Awesome. Well, thank you for experimenting with me, and I'm happy to continue the dialogue, work one-on-one. Those of you who said that shoulder-wise and arm-wise this was awkward, but you do feel potentially like there could be a good stretch for you in it, I'd love to try to figure out how to make that work for you. Well, I like that way of dismounting. Yeah, just kind of slid a little away from the wall and then rolled onto the back, knees to belly. Give it a try. Nice dismount. I give you a 9.3. That's fantastic. Yeah, and wall work in general can be really, really fun. In fact, maybe I'll put together a practice for us next week that gives us some other beneficial stuff. Yeah, it can be very supportive. It can be really lovely. Reclined fidget against the wall is actually one of my favorites. So I commitment to you, more wall goodness next week. Let's do it. For now, go ahead and come back on to your mat. And I'm curious to have you right away lay down, raise the hips, and place the block under the pelvis. That is, again, a kind of more passive opening of the front line. You might stay for a moment with your knees bent, and then if you'd like, do the leg extension. If anyone's on a cork block and it's feeling just kind of hard against your body, you might switch to one of these soft ones or even the foam ones. I'm so grateful you guys are here. Thank you for joining me in the grand body experiment. Wherever you are in this version of things, please join me in some sighing breaths. Inhaling slow, deep and wide. I am whole, I am well, I am safe. Gosh, this is just such a beautiful day. An early whisper of entry to fall, the cool, cool mornings. We've got the summertime temps coming on this afternoon. And I would love for all of us, my wish is for us to feel as balanced, as free and delicious in our bodies as possible. it can be really wearing to live with a certain amount of pain, torque, tension. It can make life feel hard. So whenever we can bring ease to the body, it usually rolls over onto the emotional and mental plane too. When you feel complete with this front body opening with that block beneath the sacrum, please come off and do a nice deep hug of the knees. We're gonna be coming into Happy Baby today, and I'm gonna basically request / demand that if you cannot hold your feet and keep your low back completely on the floor versus the tailbone being pulled up, then I'd love to have you use a strap. So if you don't have one and you know you're gonna need one to pull that off, let me know. Otherwise, I will kind of watch and see what I think. Okay, looking good, you guys, you're figuring that out. So shoulder heads anchor down the back. Big inhale, exhale, belly towards spine, kind of working that tailbone towards the floor. Then applying pressure on the feet until those knees come close to the floor as they can. And I'm gonna ask you to breathe deeply into that stretch because it gets us in to some deep inner thigh groin stuff, some of us might find what's actually part of that inner ham. So there's that big beefy center ham, but the hamstrings also come up that inside. And man, they can really affect our hip flexibility, our knee happiness. Yeah, anybody finding anything good when you do that same pressure of breath down into the pelvis? Yeah, good, I'm seeing some nice deep belly breaths, you guys look good. If from here you're thinking that half straddle would be the thing, then join me in letting go of your strap or your feet, sliding your hands higher up the leg until your elbows land, your upper arms land. I'm gonna let my knees come as far apart into my hands as they can, so kind of opening wide and just letting those heels hang. Okay, so this is the start of half straddle. And then we extend one leg into the waiting hand, and I might point, flex, and roll. And then we extend the other leg, point, flex, and roll. And I invite you to continue to notice, can you let the leg lower? I realized, I was kind of holding mine further away from the floor than it needed to be. And you might even be able to roll. So you can let that leg kind of drop into your hand, letting the hand come closer to the floor. It doesn't have to be straight up. Some of us may need that higher prop, but some of us might really enjoy that roll. And I can feel a good stretch into my arch in one of those when I flex my foot. I'm kind of curious if, okay, thank you, you knew where I was going with that. Right, so what I love about this pose, and it's something I do, by the way, almost every morning, is you're getting a chance to explore and release that whole line without being weight bearing. Yeah. Does it feel good? A little self-massage, right? I love it. And then, again, if you're ever craving something specific, you guys know the deal, go there. But otherwise, then bring your heels together in butterfly at the butt. And we're gonna create a slightly different angle of motion where I'm gonna do what I call a little windshield wiper. And you can do this with or without a sit-up. I'm doing it without a sit-up so that my neck can stay more relaxed. But I'm going to bring my right foot up towards my chest, and I'm letting it rock me a little out to the left. And then I'm gonna bring my left foot up, and I'm gonna let it rock me a little out to the right. And what I'm doing is getting some wonderful snowmobile fluid into the hips, but also I'm feeling some stretch up the waistline and ribs. Are you guys getting that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, a really nice way to then move that stretch from the lower body up into the mid body. Love it. Let's now plant those feet for bridge pose with or without a block between the thighs, up to you. I'm going to work my upper arms into the floor, shoulder blades towards the spine, and lift the chin so that I'm not taking on any neck tension as I rise slowly to bridge, holding through the entire exhale. Is there more? Inhaling, descending one rib at a time. You can relax the belly and pelvis And then that next exhale again, rising, either squeezing a block between the thighs or imagining. As we continue this glacial slow descent on the inhale, exhaling, rising, is come into some of those points of introversion, light connection, tip of the tongue, soft ujjayi breath, inward gaze. One of the things that we get to practice progressively as yogis is the power of looking in, up and in towards that third eye, but also the challenge and power of learning how to open our eyes, but still look inward. Our attention is inside the body. So if you open your eyes now to the ceiling in that soft drishti gaze, as we call it, notice that you can be distracted by what your eyes are seeing, or you can turn them inward, taking note of sensation, right? Where are you feeling the breath? Is there more? What's happening in your glutes, your hands? Next time you come on down, inviting you to extend the left leg and bring the right knee into the belly, release wind pose. No wings, no shrugs. Notice, please, if you feel like you're getting pulled out to the right, we would love to take note of that and compare it to the other side. I'm inviting you to take your knee right and left. Some of us, when we bring the knee towards the center line, might feel a little impingement in that kind of groin line. Don't force it or irritate it, but take notice of it. And sometimes I'll even take my hand, in this case my left hand, into that crease and just sort of gently kind of swoosh around, technical term, to just notice where is that impingement. Yeah. And then extending that right leg straight up to the sky, point, flex, and roll, big inhale. Exhale, root the low back, keep reaching through the left heel as you now reach through the right heel like you want to paint the wall in front of you. And not. And just notice what's happening in that abdomen area. Again, we've been talking about that psoas and hip flexor connection, so we're kind of doing a little more research. Here we go, left knee in, release wind pose. Flexing firmly away through the right heel. And as you bring that left knee in, do you get pulled to the outside? Do you feel pretty neutral and stacked on the kind of center body? And then what happens is you bring your left knee out and in. Is it the same as the right side? Is there any kind of impingement sensation when you go towards the center line? If so, is it similar, different? And can you take your hand in there and kind of investigate? And on a long inhale, extending that leg up. Exhale, root, reaching through both heels, slowly descend the left leg. You might roll your head side to side. Maybe your eyes are closed, maybe you're in that drishti gaze, seeing inward, even though the eyes are open. Big, long inhale. Exhale, empty. Hold out and begin your pumping. I recommend a very slow, firm pumping. So empty that breath, and then as you draw the belly in, keep thinking about drawing it in and up. And some of us will feel some of those connections that we've been working with through the hips. Anybody besides me feel that they can talk to that psoas area? That one other person, okay. Or maybe you feel it on the pushing out part. That's possible. Marvelous. Now we're going to take some of this and work into the upper body. So we're going to be coming onto our right side in embryo pose. If you want to bring knees to belly and spine, will rock a little first and then move into it, whatever works. It can be lovely to have a little something to tuck under your head so it's not just dropping to the floor. If you want something soft and you don't have it, please let me know. This might be nice too. Anybody else want a little something? Soft? Sure, see? So we're gonna be doing a shoulder movement that is designed, you know how I always say, you guys, I point at the deltoid and I say, this is not your shoulder, this is your shoulder, all the things in front, back, and under, right? So what I'm gonna ask you to do, you're on your right side, is to take your left arm and what we call kind of a cactus, so bent elbow. And I want you to just play with circling, you're circling the elbow. The hand is just sort of falling wherever it falls in space. And so you can play with it. Some people are actually letting their hand drop closer to their shoulder joint, others are keeping in that 90-degree cactus. There's nothing bad as long as it doesn't obviously hurt. But I'm hoping, are some of you feeling some kind of the movement and range happening around the blade and where it connects down into the ribs, below the armpit at all? Yes? Good. So I'm gonna ask you to find a way to do this that is as easeful as possible. So if you're working it and you're feeling a bunch of neck tension, chill out. And at some point when you're ready, inviting you to reverse circle. Now we're going to do a pumping motion. So you're going to take your arm and reach it up like you're trying to touch the wall behind you or above your head at the back of the room here. And then pull down like you've got a pulley you're pulling on that brings your elbow in towards your ribs. And extend and pull. So I'm kind of bringing, when I'm extending, I'm allowing my bicep to come towards my ear. If that feels okay in your shoulder, arms straight. And then I'm bending and pulling down. Good, and then now, see if you can rotate your left chest even more towards the ceiling. So in my case, I'm kind of coming onto the back of my head. If you're flexible enough here, some of you may prefer to get rid of the whatever's under your head and scoot your right shoulder further to the right. So as long as your head's not like super dropping back. And I'm gonna ask you to create that same motion of extending the arm and kind of pulling down by the ribs. And again, this does not need to be a super aggressive movement. I just want a little bit of like isometric tractioning so you're not just flopping around. Yeah, how about the head? Would it feel good to kind of rotate away from that arm? And let's actually bring the arm now straight back behind us 90 degrees, palm open to the ceiling, facing away from your arm. So I've got my left arm out behind me. I'm going to turn my face to the right. Yeah, and for some of us that'll bring a stretch into that neck and chest, others not so much. Then slowly, if you would, come into your embryo on that right side. So just curl back into a nice little ball. Yeah, this would be a nice time to do a little lion stretch even, work that jaw. Woo! God, I didn't know I needed that so bad. When you're ready to go up to your left side, and we're gonna play similarly. If any part of this is not making sense, you're sort of like, I don't know, I'm not feeling anything. First of all, just know the warming movement that we're doing of bringing synovial fluid into the shoulder is valuable. You know, we don't always have to be seeking an intense edge for something to be useful. But if you're kind of like, I don't know about this, I'm happy to come investigate with you. One of the biggest gifts we can get from this is to be able to know, is this side different? Places that you're free, the places that you're bound up or crunchy, the connections that you feel. Is it different on this side? Love it, you all look so intently focused, and I'm hearing some nice ujjayi breath. At some point you might reverse your circle, and slow as useful. You know, and often these movements inspire me to take my hand somewhere. Actually, I've seen a couple other people doing that too. Yeah, where I'll be like, oh yeah, what is that? Oh yeah, that's right up on my collarbone scalings. Interesting. Didn't feel that on the other side when I did this. And then as you're ready, we'll do our pulley move. We're gonna reach up behind. Maybe that arm is coming as close to the ear as can be. and then pulling down. And again, pulling only with as much sort of weight or intensity as you need to just feel that you're engaged and not flopping. So nothing aggressive. And at some point when you feel that that's gone as far as it needs to go, you'll bring that arm straight back behind you and you're rotating your face away from the hand, which is actively reaching out. Yeah, and you don't have to stay in that reaching away. I mean, maybe you want to move the head back towards center and rotate away again. The body loves pulsing. Yeah. And we didn't add this on the other side, but if you want to flex in and out on the wrist, that can add some lovely excitement too. And when it feels appropriate, just come on back to embryo. I would love to go back to the right side briefly, because we're going to add one more investigation into those connections and lines. And again, you may or may not desire the block under the head. You could wait and see. But we're going to add the leg extension. Before we do that, please make sure your knees are straight forward of your hips and knees are stacked and feet are flexed, right? And then I'm going to work my right arm down towards my knees because I'm going to end up using my right hand to hold that top leg or left leg. So I'm now going to extend that left leg, heel flexed, and I'm going to try and get it high enough that my hand can kind of support maybe right around the calf or the knee. And if this just does not work, if you're just tightening your neck like crazy or something, don't do it. So it's with your floor arm, not your top arm. You want your floor arm. So it's propping from underneath. And then you're going to take your upper arm and you're going to open that behind. And I invite you to explore. I like looking behind during this stretch or kind of at least towards the ceiling. And we're going to breathe a couple of really deep breaths. Big inhale. So big that it lifts that back arm. Exhaling, see if you can settle more deeply. And again, you may or may not want that block by the time you've opened into this pose. And we'll return briefly to embryo. And then slowly explore on the other side. You guys getting some good stuff? Good, good. So some of us will be feeling that up the IT band, maybe into the hip. So again, knees straight forward to the hip joints, heels flexed. As you're ready, again, bring your floor arm, the left arm this time, as far down towards your leg so that when you extend it, it's already just sort of there, waiting, and then opening up behind. Yeah, there's a standing yoga pose that is essentially this, and it's a really great pose, but man, it can be quite the tension builder. So I figured this is the place to start and really enjoy and notice. Breathe. Isn't it cool how the breath can bring a massage to a specific area? I find that to be so cool. Ooh, yeah, actually the standing version of this is another good one to do using the wall. So I will add it to next week. So I'm going to make a little list so I don't forget, because I've got some great things in mind for you. Again, just notice what feels good, how long, where's your head, and when you feel ready, embryo pose. And then please, in your own time, go ahead and come back to your back body for our reclined pigeon. Now, reclined pigeon, I find sometimes, to your question earlier, sometimes one side really wants more attention. Always flex the heel before you go in. Maybe you want to do a little wag of the knee and notice what's there. And then slowly raising that left foot off the floor, hugging either just the right knee or the right knee and foot, and then sending it all a little towards the center line. So I'm literally letting my hips rock a little left as well. So it's not just the leg coming towards the center line. Doesn't take much to get a good stretch for most people in this ankle. Breathing and noticing until you feel ready to come out. And for me, usually extending that leg that was crossed into a nice straight leg can feel really good. All right, we'll go to the other side. Left ankle flexed, crossing onto right thigh, wagging left knee perhaps. Hugging left knee, maybe the foot. No wings, no shrugs. Please check that you are finding the most easeful version of this for your neck and shoulders. Because to be clear, it's not the neck and shoulders that help us hold. It's actually core. Yeah. Yes. All right, and then when you're ready, extending, we're gonna do one more fun little experiment here. And I acknowledge this is a fair bit of work for hands, but I think a lot of you have strong hands. So you're gonna return to feet flat. We're gonna take the right leg and I'm gonna bring the right knee in towards my belly. And I'm gonna kind of relax my lower leg. And I'm gonna take my hands and I'm kind of curving my fingers so they're really strong. And I'm going to just be working a little pulsing movement up and down the back of the hamstring. And for some of us, this will just be like, no big deal. And others, you might be like, whoa, that's something. Yeah, and you can kind of work both in the center meat part and the belly as I think of it. And then you can also kind of work down the inside and outside and just see if there's anything. One of my favorites is to then I'll just take my left hand on the inside of my right thigh and just squeeze. Just squeeze. Yeah, marks. And let's do the same on the other side. So again, you can be playing with angles of how you want to do this and where needs it the most. Again, I like closing with just using the right hand now to just squeeze all that inner line. Arms. All right. As you're ready, we're gonna come on up and we're gonna take this into some standing stretch. First is ragdoll. So plant those feet, let the head hang. Please have the knees bent. And if need be, you can have your hands on the block, your elbows on your thighs, whatever allows you to feel the right level of intensity, mostly into the meat, again, belly of the ham, not at the knees, not right up at the butt insertion points. Try to have your feet parallel, and we can play with having them, and I would encourage you to do both. Having them both in a mountain stance, which is just about a block widths apart, 6 inches. So the block the middle skinny way, not the full long way. Or having them wide. And they're different poses. Check that out. So here my stretch is going much more to kind of the outside. And when I move my feet in, I'm feeling much more in that, what I call the belly of the ham. As you are ready, I invite you to step back to your downward facing dog. Don't worry, we'll be doing a little bit more thigh and hip stretching, and it's kind of an unusual class. I'm hoping you'll feel like you've had a good massage at the end of this. So in downward dog, using that pedaling motion, once you've got nice stability, to get into that back leg, pressing one heel towards the floor and then the other, taking them out wide like you're going into bear stance. Yeah, and a lot of you are remembering that pose that we do. It feels so good, right? Where you bend, for example, your right knee, straighten your left leg, and send your hips to the left. And then opposite, straighten right leg, or mostly straight. We don't care if the heel ever gets to the floor, by the way. And you send the hips to the left. Did I say left before? I meant right. Anyway, I think you know what I mean. You send your hips away from the straightening leg. How about that? Getting that? Yeah, treasure. Yeah, cheapest one-hour massage you've ever had. And useful. All right. If you are craving any kind of upward dog, downward dog, dog series, etc., this is your chance. Otherwise, we're going to end up standing again. We'll do some straddle. But you could go to child's pose from ragdoll. You could walk your hands back to your feet. Enjoy the stretch there a moment before sweeping up. And one of my favorite movements is actually pushing the ceiling away. And I can often get a stretch into that same low belly psoas, etc. Yeah. Ooh, actually, yeah, while we're doing that, thank you for reminding me. So nice anchoring mountain stance. Go ahead and take your right arm up, press through the palm, and very slightly go to the left. So this is not a big movement. I don't want to drop or crank. Yeah, and breathe. I usually just rotate my face down. And release, and we'll do the other side. Rooting and reaching through that left arm. Going over to the right. And releasing. Okay, now we're gonna step back a little through the right foot. I'm not going very far, as you can see. I'm gonna reach up through that right arm, and once again, go a little to the left. And if you don't feel any kind of stretch through to that right side, maybe walk your right foot a little further back. So people have very different train tracks that works for them, and you want that heel straight back if you can, so you're still in the track. Let's find the other side. So left leg is back, left arm is up, and we're reaching over to the right to stretch that left side. So again, great chance to notice any differences. Beautiful. Come on back. Inhale, root and rise. Exhale, step sideways on your mat. Let's go that way in straddle. Yeah. And begin your side to side movements. This is a great place to explore. You know, when I was doing this morning, I just sort of really kept the massage theme going, and I had my hands on my thighs, and I was just like noticing up into my hips and my glutes. Like, how's it going today? Yeah, and if you feel like you can go low, maybe have the hands on the floor. Ever so slowly, because you'll begin to notice more subtlety. So it's like, yeah, is there a stretch in my inner line? Yes. Is it all the same all the way up and down? No. How much of it is up in that thigh groin? How much of it's around kind of the knee? Would it feel good in your body as you hold to one side to stay in this position, or can you drop? So you basically drop your butt towards one heel while letting the other leg extend. This is one of my favorite places to get into that inner thigh ham. And yeah, right? I can see that you're getting the same joy that I am. And what I like doing is, again, keeping a nice long spine from tailbone to crown, actually lowering my torso. Like I want to kiss the earth, but not by dropping my head. And what I find is that often gets me into something a little deeper. Make sure that your knee isn't like locked. So just make sure you're contracted a little bit so the knee is up and not locked. And when you feel ready, always a slow release. In fact, the only time I have ever been injured wasn't really in yoga, it was after yoga. It was early on when I started teaching. And I went to just flop into a seated straddle, like to have a conversation. And ping, it was horrible. So coming quickly out of stretches like this is a great way to get injured. All right. Taking all the time in the world with it, however much support, come on out. And let's finish up with a little yoga mudra, or if you have a different kind of chest open or shoulder love that you prefer. One of my favorite things to do is to do a little yoga mudra first, just standing, to kind of warm and make sure everybody here is okay. And then is to take those feet into a little straddle, deep knee bend, And then hinge forward to let the fists rise towards the ceiling. And then micro movements. So I might let my fists come a little back towards the butt and then up, but again, slow, little movements. Maybe I rotate a little right to breathe into that, a little left. And when you feel complete with that, again, you might want to do some nice range of movement, just love it up. And lastly, to get into that chest jaw area, I want to see if we can get our hands on skin. So I'm bringing my hands inside my tank top. If you're wearing a t-shirt or something, you can kind of try and pull the neck down. But ideally, if you can get at least your fingers on your skin, you can do it again at home when you get your full palm. But essentially, oh yeah, I did actually, I had somebody on Thursday, a guy, like, I thought he was gonna take his shirt off. He just put his whole arms inside his shirt. I was like, yeah, you got a big old t-shirt on. All right, we're gonna draw down on the skin of our chest while we inhale and reach up through our chin. We're not gonna drop the head back. When you're ready, inhale, reach. And relax. Again. Sometimes it can make you cough. When you're up again, if you'd like, just do a little left to right wag. So I'm just letting that stretch move. And then inviting you to bring the hands right up to those connection points there, right where the SCM comes up in kind of behind the jaw and right in front of the earlobe. You guys feel that? Sometimes I've even taken my thumbs like right up in, you know, you have to be careful you're not like pressing on your carotid arteries or anything like that. But you know when something feels good, right? And if you can find those little tension points right where the jaw and the ear connect, and then go right in front of the ear. Holy Toledo, right? And then if you feel like it, go ahead and come into some lion stretching. Maybe massaging a little in between. One of my favorite stretches is drawing the tongue down, like someone's using a tongue depressor. And so instead of out, it's down. And I can feel that stretch all the way through those throat tissues. So especially if you've been kind of hurrying, worrying, in any kind of stress mode, noticing how that sets up in our heads. My eyes, I struggle with a lot of eye fatigue. I'll be trying to be on my phone and then, oh yeah, I need my cheaters. And it's just, by the middle of the day, I can feel it. And if I rub right in here, I can almost entirely remove that fatigue. So just the willingness to touch ourselves, to notice, first of all, I always say noticing precedes change, and to give things our attention. So given that, I'm going to ask you to notice, what does your body need to kind of wind down towards our yogic sleep, where we're going to integrate all of this. Some of you might be like, hey, I haven't gotten to do plank yet. Go ahead and do some forearm plank or what have you. Maybe there's a specific stretch that you're now feeling you need. Maybe you'd like to close your practice, the resting part of it, with the legs up the wall. It can be marvelous actually to use the wall. I was kind of referencing some of this earlier, that we can use it for reclined pigeon, but we can also just use it for a supported butterfly. And that can be pretty amazing depending on what you found today, or a supported straddle. So if you'd like to do that and you feel like you just need a little padding under your back, definitely take a mat with you. Wherever you are, again, it's a place of noticing, of respect for this amazing, amazing body that you're in. I'm really grateful to all of you for experimenting, investigating, gathering clues on the clue trail. Isn't it fun to discover that just by giving things our attention and having a few tools that we can get to know our body better and we can really start to learn how to have it be healthier and happier, maybe even than it was years ago. I love that. So as you're settling towards resting, if you're thinking, gosh, I really wish I had blank, I'd be happy to get you a blanket, a bolster, a yoga mat for under your knees. Each exhale, we're sinking more deeply down, down, down. invite you to stay deeply introverted, but become lightly aware of my voice. As I invite you to bring your palms together and create a brisk rub, you're igniting your own healing heat and capacities. We all have it. I'm going to invite you to do a couple different things. First, just take your left hand to your belly, your right hand to your chest. Affirming wholeness, goodness, peace, safety, ease in your systems, whatever words might come to you. Just affirming that even if we've been experiencing some discomfort, pain, illness, what have you, that basically our systems are working beautifully on our behalf, and we are amazing, healthy beings. And then if you're willing, I invite you to then take your hands into a slow expiration of the abdomen. And we're just going to start on that right hip bone. So I just have one hand on top of the other, in this case, my right hand on top of left, and I'm sliding my left hand over towards my right hip bone. And I'm going to use kind of the fingers in a sort of cupping way. I always think of it as like trying to peel cookie dough away from the bowl, or bread dough, you know, from the rim of the bowl. And then as you're ready, you'll go up the right side towards the right ribs. And then you can kind of, you might change your hand position or use a different hand to try and bring the dough down from that part of the bowl rim. And eventually you'll explore it underneath the upper left ribs. And eventually you'll head down towards the left hip bone to complete that circle of the bowl. And what I invite you to notice is there anywhere particular along the way that feels really different, maybe a little hard, maybe a little sensitive. At some point, when you feel complete with that exploration, you might just do a nice soft smoothing circle, again in that same position, that same direction, clockwise. I thank you each so much for coming to practice today with your beautiful exploring minds, playful, but also purposeful. And I feel that this investment in our bodies and beings will support us throughout the week. I hope you have fun being you. Thank you so much for joining me. Om Shanti Shanti. Namaste. You can be with us next week for our fall stuff. So fun.